Welcome back, everybody. Today we have a small cuckoo clock, not real small, but it is a small cuckoo clock to work on. I do believe they call it the two pigeon clock, and we're going to take a look at it. I don't have the crown for it, and so let me show you the best I can find that's for sale on eBay and kind of give you an idea of what this clock is, and then I'll show you the clock. This is a clock I found on there. It's not exactly like mine by no means, but right now they got it for sale for $16.50, and it looks like it's really shined up. It's hard telling, but now let me show you my clock. This is my clock. All it says is cuckoo on it. It does have a K there, and it also is made in Tokyo, Japan. And I've had this around for a while. I noticed, of course, that bird's got a little bit of a problem with this. These move up and down. I do like the wood on it. Normally I don't like the cuckoo clocks from Japan. It's I think it's their type of staining or something. Here it's got the two wires here to, I guess, hook the crown onto. Actually, the box itself has got pretty wood on it. That shows it's old. The planer didn't plane it smooth. And it's got this little simple works on here. Let me get some better light in there and maybe you can see the movement on how it moves back and forth. So we're going to take this out and clean it. I'm not even sure if it needs cleaned or not. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily want to tick. So we'll clean this. I'll see if I have some hands that'll fit on here and just take care of this clock, get it all shined back up again, and hopefully get these birds to sit up there straight and cuckoo as they're supposed. Well, they don't cuckoo, wobble as they're supposed to. So in here I have 4 screws that you can actually get to take this movement out, and I'm going to go ahead and take this plate off that has the birds, or holding the birds. This bird here looks like he's been broken. I can't tell if they tried taping it in there or what, but that's why I'm going to go ahead and take the whole thing out. So I think it's going to be a lot easier to try to adjust it, fix the birds, whatever it needs. And I'll probably go ahead afterwards and slide them off of these 2 rods here that actually get this clock to tick back and forth. So let me get this stuff out and we'll take a look at it. So let's see how graceful I can get this thing out. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the birds from here because it's easier now that it's out. Of course, that fell off. That's kind of natural on these. Don't lose them when they fall out. So by the looks of it, I got to bend these little pieces of wire up just a little bit. And then wiggle that out of there. There's one bird released. Still too tight. Oh, it fell off by accident. So here's the birds. I've noticed they got a copper wire wrapped around the back end. And then that's what comes out the end of their tail to make it so you can hook this on. Now you can see this one here is busted through. So I'm going to have to figure out how I want to repair that. And there's a chance once I get this in place, I might use some hot glue, but I gotta be careful. These things are thin. As you can see how hairy and dusty these things are. And once I get them cleaned up or get them, especially this one, so he's working again, I'll go ahead and clean these up and try to get them to either turn white or turn gray like a dove is. And as for the movement, from this side, you can tell it's got some tarnish on it, but looking inside and on top, because it is an open clock, it's got a lot of dust on here. And once I get this thing running, I'm gonna have to adjust these so it'll actually tick and not have the bird stress this thing out. Like I said, that side looks good. That side, that's tight. Oh wait, I see. There's the friction washer down here. It's come up on top of the wheel. There, now it's down. So this gear will drop down. So this here can go on. So all the teeth match now on the gears. You can tell how dirty these things are. It's really draggy going across this too. Your friction is what's going to normally stop these clocks. This here is a permanent gear on here because it doesn't go through, it's just riveted on. So we'll take off as much as we can when it comes to that. I notice this has got bushings in it, which I can't believe this clock would be wore out. So it might have came brand new from the factory with bushings because it's so small. Maybe they couldn't get the gears to fit right or whatever. I have no idea, to tell you the truth. So the winder does tick, does hold. And so this washer and whatnot, when I separate this, I'll have to remember to put them back on as I put these back into the movement. So I'm just looking. I don't know if you can see that or not. This thing doesn't have but two gears in here. We'll call this one 3. And then these gears here, I guess, are activated. Because there's not really much to this one. Just the same, I will take pictures so I don't put this on backwards or whatever. And I'll take pictures like this, so this is pointing down and I'll remember it's pointing down. But realistically, I'm going to have this pointing up when I take pictures because it looks like all the main weight to these gears are down lower. So they might stay in place as I'm popping this in, but like I say, there's not much to this movement. So let me go ahead and pull these. Well, shoot, they're already, that one's almost off. That nut. I think someone's been in here. That nut's free. These are all finger tight if they're not falling off already. There, we got those off. Now we can pull this thing apart with it down. But like I say, before I do that, let me get a picture. I know it's a cheap movement, but The screws act like they're not lining up in order to get this case back together, so it's like they had to bend them to move get them in place. And the gears don't want to come out because they're possibly dirty. So there's a washer and the friction that goes on here on this shaft. This gear here is stuck in here. There, it's out now. So you can tell this thing is dirty. And here you can see the rivet in here that keeps this one on. So we're going to put this in the cleaner. The pendulum almost stuck in the hole. Pull that camera back. You can see how dirty that is, but the ends are really stuck in the hole. We'll take the winder off. See, it's got a little bit of rust in here too. There, that one's stuck. There we go. I say that's stuck in there too. And of course the plate. And neither plate says anything about what it is, but of course this is more of what they'd call a novelty clock. See the clicker. This brass, I guess we'll call it washer, is a tight fit and press down on to make this thing work. There's what catches it from going back again. This plate drops down because of that. This is kind of odd because I thought this might be the clicker or whatever. They build it to just hold this chain winder, I guess we'll call it, down. I'm not taking this apart. I'm just going to clean it the way it is because it is working. So let me get those in the cleaner, and while they're in there, I think I'll go ahead and dress up the wax or whatever, this case, to make it look pretty again. Normally I don't wax the dial, but in this case I think I'm going to, because of, well, besides it looks old, it's a smaller clock. I have to find my tape measure. I'm going to give you a measurement of this clock, but it's not a teeny clock, and you can kind of see the size of my hand, showing you that, and I have a large hand. I can just about get from one end to the other. So I'm going to wax it besides everything else. Let's try this out and see what it, I already dusted it off with a paintbrush, and I'm going to also use this paintbrush to help get into the places where I can't get with this rag here. See, because this is their type of shine or finish on the clock, the Japanese, and so it's actually going to come out pretty good because of it being a small clock. If it was a regular cuckoo clock, anyway, if it was a regular size cuckoo clock, I think they call them poo-poo clocks or whatever. I don't like those. That's just my opinion. Some people love them. I just don't like the looks of them. I don't like the finish, I guess is what it is. To me, they look cheesy. compared to a normally stained clock, which realistically, this is almost what I'd consider a normal stained clock. The other ones are kind of, looks like they're painted on or whatever, I don't know. So I got a little on the dial, let's see what it looks like just doing the dial. Which I'm sure it makes it look brand new from when they were first sold. And of course this all needs to be buffed off again, but that looks a lot better. And like I say, I plan on putting or using the brush to get some extra wax down in where I can't reach. Make sure to get the whole doorway, so that looks good. Not that this clock's going to be at a level that you're going to see it, but it might help be a little bit of a dust catcher when dust is flying around. So it's not going to be as much, hopefully, that goes into the movement. Now when you're waxing your clock too, you're going to want to wax these edges because they're kind of dry looking. They'll really darken up and look a lot nicer than that. And you can't get your finger in there or clear in there. You just take your rag and fold it in there, get it in the creases, and that way it'll take care of that color. So I'll go ahead and finish this clock up. Let's give a quick look at this here. So this is actually some pretty wood in here. It's almost plain, but it's got a clear finish on it. That doesn't look bad. So anyway, let me get this whole thing waxed up and we'll take a look at it. And this wax is going to soak in. It's really shiny right now. And so it's going to soak in and dull down just a little bit. And so technically speaking, you don't have to worry about, oh, I don't want my clock that shiny. Let's just see how shiny it is once this is soaked in like it needs to. So I got all the parts clean. I went ahead and used brass cleaner on some of this because it looked really nasty, like this back piece here where it looks like it's got scratches or something in it. Why didn't I do that side? Well, besides the gear didn't come off, I did this side, and when it's in the case, you're not gonna see it. Or if you open the back, you will see that part. And for the case, it shined up pretty nice. Of course, you want to do the back side too. The wood needs the wax. And this wax also, the more you wax your clock, the darker it's going to end up getting, even though this has already got a stain and dark on here. So a measurement on this case, just going to the roof because I don't have a crown. We're at about 9 3/4 of an inch. The topper, it's at, well, we're from edge of roof to edge of roof is 7 1/4. So I imagine you're going to look for a 7 1/2 or something like that, or one that's going to actually match this clock if you're worried about getting it fully original, I guess we'll say. I forgot to put that on as I was putting this together. So, here we go, taking it apart again. Okay, now I got it together with the washer and the friction washer on top of that. Now this movement, to keep the hands on it, doesn't have a nut. It does have a hole going through it, so a taper pin will be going through this, and we'll see about a curved washer or something to hold all this down, because it has to pressure fit on in order for the hands not to just turn willy-nilly, we'll say. So, to get to this now, I slid that bird back on, kind of where he's supposed to be. He's not done yet. I see we can take that screw out, which is actually pinpointing onto the shaft here. Help you any? Anyway, pinpoint. This here is pinned right in through there where it's a point. So on this side, let's go ahead and take it off so we can mess with it. I don't want to turn too well, but it's got to, because this bar goes pinpointed into there and over to here, and it might need, let me put a little dab of oil on this end here, and then we'll check it out, see if it'll unscrew. It already turned a little bit once, so screw it back in a little bit, work it back and forth. Here it comes. That ready to come out? Yep. So this here just slides in and out. See if we can get that out all the way, and clean the rust off of this. And I'll do the same with this other one. And now it's going to be easier to clean up these birds, and possibly we might go ahead and just paint them, because that dirt's, I'm sure, just ground in there, and you're not going to clean these that well because they're so thin. So let me get the other one off and we'll see what we can come up with. And I already oiled that one too. Okay, I went in the house and stole the wife's baking soda. She's not at home, she'll never know, I just got to get it back. And I used the super glue, and I used a drill bit to push the plastic parts back up where they're supposed to. And also the seam here was starting to crack open a little bit. So I went ahead and put super glue on there, and then sprinkled a little baking soda on there, and then I put super glue again to thicken it up, and then sprinkled it one more time. So now it should be ready for painting, and by the looks of it, once these are done, I'm going to have to, once I get them adjusted onto its frame again, I'm going to have to glue these things into place, because you don't want these things sliding back and forth on the rod. You want them to stay in the center of the door. And so I have to figure out for sure exactly where that is, which should be pretty simple, to put it in the center of this when I get these things painted again. So I'm going to go ahead and paint them white, and the red beak and the red eyes like it's on here already. The main thing is getting the front painted, but I'll paint what I can. What I'm holding right now, I probably won't paint. It's not a big deal. They're the dirty look. I don't care. I just want them a little bit whiter. I actually didn't want them very white. Got their beak on, their eyes in, and I went ahead and centered the bird and glued them in because they gotta fit in the center, right? To make it easier, I went ahead and hooked the birds to the movement so I can get it all in there real easy, and then I'm going to have to adjust the wires and also adjust the two wires here so this thing will tick easily and hopefully keep ticking. Okay, I have everything screwed in. I got my birds adjusted so I can move this, and it seems to do good. I was having a problem getting this started because it's really, after I got the chain in, it really didn't want to run, and I found that this part here that this here goes through, it was squished in too tight, and I was able to pull it out a little bit. Now it runs just fine. Looks like this one's dropping down too far. I'll have to adjust that one. Putting the back door on. You can see where there used to be a screw or nail. And I'm going to take this small nail, maybe, and stick in there. So that way when you go to pull it off the wall, you don't have to worry about that board slipping off. You don't need it in there very far, but far enough it's not going to hit the wall. Now, I don't know if you notice or not, but there is a metal piece sticking out here and one right there, and that's meant to go into the wall. So when you wind it, it doesn't affect the clock tipping. Now, if your clock doesn't have a nail sticking out that's been cut off that just lightly grabs, and your clock's always tipping on you, if you want, take a pin on whichever side the clock always wants to go and stick it against the case and into the wall, and that way every time you wind it, it's always up against that pin and you don't have to worry about, well, why'd my clock stop? It's because the tick-tock even sound goes away because every time you wind the clock it wants to tip one way or another. I also don't know what size this clock takes for a weight. I have a 150. Let's see if you can see that. One of these are bound to do it. I have a 150, it's 150 gram. They got ET, whatever that means. Anyway, I tried it in the clock, and so far, this is the minimum, which I don't know if they make any smaller or not. This clock probably is supposed to have a bigger weight, because looking online at the other clocks, they look like they're a 200, maybe just a little bit bigger. But we're going to try it on here and see how well it works. Well, I finally got the clock going. I bet you I spent an hour to 2 hours trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, because once I got the clock put back together, put the movement in and everything, you turn the minute hand, the hour hand just sit there. I finally figured out that brass friction washer that was in there. It kept jumping up on top of that other gear, which wouldn't allow my hand gears to make the contact to the other gears it needed. So finally I had to turn the clock with the face pointing up and install the movement that way to make sure to keep that washer into place. Then go ahead and get the hands hooked on and the taper pin in. Then I could turn it around and go ahead and put the screws in to hold it. And also I needed to hold the hour hand gear down where the hands go, because the minute hand kind of had a square hole and I had to file one of those square hole nuts or whatever, because it wasn't meant for that clock, and I don't even know if you can get those anymore. But I filed it so it fit down in there, but it still had a little bit further to go. So I had to put in a little spacer. I had a washer that happened to be the right size that would hold the hour hand shaft down, and then the minute hand could sit in there and stick that pin in there. Everything seemed to work just fine. Sounds like a long story, but that's what I had to do. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe because it's free. And give me a thumbs up if you appreciated this video or enjoyed any of it. And until next time, God bless.